All right, welcome everyone. All right, obviously just recap of some of the things in the OU game. From the rep, put that one behind us officially. Obviously we needed to play with great effort, probably above the top effort, to compete in that game, and we played with effort, but we didn't play with the over-the-top type effort. We needed to have be great in the kicking game. We weren't great there. We had a turnover in the kicking game, allowed a kickoff to the 50. Needed to play perfect gap control defense. Obviously, we did not do that. A lot of times, you got to give OU credit for a lot of those. They're very well coached and very talented on the offensive line at tailback, and they made some of those gap issues happen. Several times we didn't play very smart, reading our keys and playing defense, and that was not obviously we weren't ready to stop some of the things that they had out there, and then the weather obviously was a factor in the game for what we were able to do offensively and what they were forced them into do running. So that game is behind us. We've moved on. We got a good start to this week early Monday morning with practice, and the players have bounced back and was very proud of the way they showed up at 5:30 in the morning on Monday ready to work. They put in a great Monday morning and got us off to a great start for the Sunflower Showdown, which obviously is a big game for everyone in the state of Kansas. A rivalry game between KU and K-State that is always a fun one to be a part of. 111 times this game's taken place, and you look back. So obviously a lot of history between the two schools. For this year's matchup, obviously I have tremendous respect for what Coach Snyder and his staff have been able to do in Manhattan, and with the way that program has had success. It's a challenging offense to defend. The quarterback's he's one of those gamer-type players. He can throw the ball, can run the ball, has a knack for making plays. And then, the wide receiver Lockett, I think, is one of the best in college football. A fun guy to watch when you're not playing against him. Really like the way that kid plays, like the way he carries himself, like his skill set. We're all pretty fortunate to be able to see him play. And then on defense, Tom Hayes has done a nice job with that defense of being able to keep those keep the game in control. They don't give up a lot of big plays. They play sound, solid defense. So tremendous challenge this week, as always in the Big 12, and we look forward to the rivalry game. So open it up for any questions.
What is it about their offense that is so challenging?
Well, it's a few things. They've truly adapted the quarterback run game into their offense at a very creative manner. They do it in a lot of ways. There's different ways to run the QB. There's a typical zone read. There's, options or stuff like that. They use it in a way where it's designed quarterback run game. So instead of just taking the power play or the counter play or zone play, they all have the option of the QB carrying the ball with all those blockings, which, as you know, when they put a 48 in the backfield, it creates the tailback actually becomes another blocker, creating one more gap in the line to create issues in their QB run game. Off of that, they have the run-pass conflict combined with it, so anytime he's running one of his QB run plays, which are already difficult to defend, they have an option to throw a pass off of it, whether it be a tight end pop, a fullback shoot route, or just a pass out to the wide receiver. So they've incorporated a lot of things in their offense that create gap issues for defenses and then also run pass conflicts for defenses. And then to top it off, you got number 16 out on the edge, who very dangerous guy.
The deal last year, it seemed like that tight end kept slipping behind you guys, and part of that conflict you're talking about is a result of that?
Oh, absolutely. The tight end caught one and the fullback caught one. Yeah, and they get them. I think every game, you see the guys there. I think West Virginia's, they didn't get it to him to hit the QB before he could throw it, but it's a well-designed play. It's tough to defend, and obviously a lot of people have had problems with it.
Why is this rivalry so important to you as a former KU player and for this university?
Well, in the state of Kansas, it's you're on one side or the other for the most part, and you grow up, with that mentality. You grow up with your friends who are KU fans, and you have the people in the room who aren't KU fans that are K-State fans, and throughout the years, you take shots at each other, and you develop those. those type of situations with the people that cheer for the other side. And so it's as people say, the bragging rights for it. But for our program, it's a game to where in state. We all kind of fight for the same recruits. We all look for the same thing. So it gives us a leg up in a few areas.
Do you have any special memories from when you were playing?
Yeah, I do. There's been a few of them. The '92 game was such a great game for us. That's the game that, playing DB, we might as well not even been there because Gilbert and Chris Mamalong and Kyle Moore and those guys were sacking the quarterback at an alarming rate, and being in the back end of that game was pretty boring.
When you were recruiting a Kansas kid, you asked right off the bat, asked the high school coach, did this kid grow up in a K-State family or a KU family?
No, actually, you do. I think you kind of do that with any kid. You want to always, when you are identifying players, identify, where their loyalties may land and stand, and it's not always the case. I never forget, pulling into Jake Sharp's house, big Nebraska flag hanging in the garage, and instead of looking like I might be wasting my time here a little bit, but fortunately he was able to overcome his, childhood liking of the Cornhuskers and come here. So, yeah, you do ask, but, I don't think that it always makes the final difference. I think every kid's situation is different.
Clint, was your family like that growing up? Was K-State ever an option for you or your brothers, or was it always KU?
No, our family's pretty much always all KU. My family's pretty much a Lawrence group, so, it was always KU, and it was definitely never Missouri, and not much K-State.
Can you talk about what a great season Ja'Cory's had and what a great role model and ambassador he is for the program?
He is, you talk about that, and it's kind of his whole character. He came here and had success as a young player as a wide receiver. And, we made the switch to move him to corner, and, he could have probably taken that a few different ways. A guy that's played and wide out his whole life and done well even as a freshman here. He moved over, jumped right in, started learning the techniques, learning the ins and outs of how to play corner. Obviously has physical skills, but there's a lot beyond that he had to learn and master his craft, and he's taken pride in it. He's worked hard at it, and he's developed himself into a nice solid corner that playing in the Big 12. And then you're right off the field. He's a tremendous young man, involved in many outside activities, Big Brothers and different deals that he's always given his time to help others. Truly a special young man.
Going back to K-State for just a second, I don't know if you saw what Coach Snyder mentioned yesterday that once upon a time he talked to you about a job. Do you remember that conversation or when that took place?
Yeah, it took place when I needed a job. No, it was after that. After we were let go with Coach Mangino's staff at that time. It's Christmas time and kids want presents, so you got to have a job. So we did. No, all seriousness, I was very fortunate to have an opportunity to go over and visit with Coach Snyder about a position on their staff. And had spent some time over there and had a great talk with him, great interview, so to speak. His attention to detail and everything he does was evident in that interview process, and learned a lot just even going through that interview. I've always, been appreciative of what Coach Snyder done, the way he operates his program in the state of Kansas, and that job situation didn't work out, but yeah, we did have a visit.
Did he offer it to you?
No, he didn't.
So you didn't have to say.
No.
Does it help? I mean, a couple weeks ago you had senior day here, and the emotions that were involved with all that for a lot of these guys. Does that help that that's kind of out of the way? This is the end. This is their last game. So does that all come back again, or is that kind of we already did that? Now you can actually not worry about those distractions and just focus on this game.
Yeah, I think the senior day does play out a little bit more when it's your final home game. I think that walking out into your home field for the last time has some special meaning. Obviously, this is going to be their last game total, so there still is a senior element to that. Obviously the K-State will, they got their seniors heading out as well. So, the same things will apply to their group of guys. But yeah, I think it's always a little bit of a, and a motivating factor, just, for players to look and say, hey, this is it. It's the last time I'm putting this helmet on for sure, so, our seniors will be ready. They've been a tremendous group and been leaders throughout, so I'd expect the same from them for this game.
Different this week, how you treat it? I mean, obviously, a bowl's not in their future, so does this become that, the bowl game or anything like that?
We're not talking about it like that, but we do have a point today. In our meeting, we are going to educate our players about the history of this rivalry. I do want our players in this program to understand what's happened before in this rivalry, why it is a rivalry. We have about a 2-page sheet that we're going to teach them about it, because I think it's important that our players understand and know, the history of Kansas football and in particular this rivalry.
You've been around it so long and in so many different facets. Why do you think it's so streaky? One team will win 3-4 in a row, and then the other will come back and win 5-6 in a row, and it just over time seems like it's kind of been that way. Is there any reason? Can you pinpoint the theory behind that?
I really don't. I think, some of it, prior to, like both programs, a lot of turnover in coaching. I think, prior to Coach Snyder getting there, K-State was similar to us, and that, quite a few different guys had, taken the realm. So I think, anytime you have stability in a program, that gives you a better chance of success, So I think, if I had any reason why, it'd probably be just a lack of stability at the head coaching position.
As you said, you recruited Jake Sharp out of Salina. It seemed like he always had his biggest games in some part of Showdown. I know talent is always a big concern, but is it important having Kansas kids on roster who understand the importance of this rivalry to the state?
Oh, I believe it is. I think that Kansas kids are a little bit more in tune to the rivalry. They grew up hearing the same things. Like I hear that your buddies are K-State fans, and they got their comments, so it builds in you a little bit more as a Kansas kid. So I think if you're a Kansas player on either one of these rosters, and you have to go home to a town to where there's going to be people you're going to see that have their opinions on which side they like, I think it does definitely mean a little bit more to a Kansas kid.
When you guys are losing quite a bit of seniors, just wondering, guys we haven't seen on scout team or redshirting, are there guys that have stood out to you this year? Is there anybody that in particular that's been really strong in that area?
Yeah, for the some of the young guys that have redshirted or haven't played a lot, we do have some guys who are I think going to be pretty good. On the defensive side of the ball, I believe the defensive lineman DJ Williams is going to be a really good player for us. I think he'll be a standout kind of guy on that side. There he will be on. I think Jacob Bragg at offensive line on the other side of the ball has a chance to have a bright future. Kent Taylor, the transfer from Florida, is a talented young man who you guys haven't been able to see this year. But yeah, we've had a few guys like that stand out.
Does the mindset change for a defensive player once the opponent gets inside the red zone? And why has Kansas been so good inside the red zone defensively?
It does change. It's a different mentality throughout the board. You always talk about when the field shrinks. As DBs, you're able to change the way that you cover people. You no longer have to defend from basically being on top of a person, being on the top working down. As a DB, you can challenge people a little bit more, knowing that there's a limited amount of space they can run away from you. So you end up changing your red zone technique in that way. The whole field shrinks. So the over the top passes, those intermediate passes become less of a factor because they can't get that little dead area right behind. So we talk about it all the time. It's one thing that we talk about. Once we hit the red zone, we know that the game becomes in our advantage, and we believe that once a team enters the 15-yard line, that we've gained a tremendous advantage as a defense, and we take pride in that, and we've had some success this year forcing some field goals.
Clint, you were on the same staff with Tom Hayes at K-State now. What do you remember from being with him?
Well, Tom served the same role I did once upon a time here as the interim head coach. You guys remember he was our defensive coordinator here and coached our DBs. At that point in time, I was actually coaching tight ends. I was on the other side of the ball here. But then Tom did inherit the interim head coaching role, and Tom, a veteran defensive coordinator. He spent all those years at UCLA as a defensive coordinator, been around several places. A very smart, detailed person. Tom does a nice job, a well-respected coach in the business.
The game's over Saturday. How soon do you hit the road recruiting? How odd is it if at that point you don't know whether you're going to be recruiting?
Well, we'll be out on the road recruiting next week. We'll be visiting those young men who are committed to us. And so we'll get out and about, early next week at some point in time and continue to sell all the things that there are positive about Kansas to sell, regardless of the head coaching situation. There's still a tremendous amount of positives and reasons that those young men chose to come to Kansas in the first place, and we'll just continue to build on those and work hard to keep those commitments solid.
In September, when you stood up there after accepting the interim job, you said, "Hey, I'm ready for this." You've obviously had a lot of work to do between then and now, and what have you gained the most, to make you even more ready for it?
It has been a tremendous experience. It's one that truly is hard to understand. How many things are going to come at you at different angles. I've learned a lot about myself, learned a lot about dealing with people, learned mostly about the leadership part of what it takes. This position is a leadership position. You lead people in different areas, from the players, the coaches, the support staff, to fans. It's a leadership spot, and so that part's been good. It's been rewarding because you realize that you can have an impact on people's lives. You impact a program and impact a lot of things. But learned a lot through it. Learned a lot about ways to manage time, ways to do things more efficiently, ways to you end up making decisions. You make a lot of decisions every day, and so you learn what to base them on and how to move on. You learn to use the people around you, the help that's provided. You learn to lean on other people and get advice. There's been countless things that I've learned in the last 8 weeks.
When you look at that, do you almost laugh that 8 weeks ago you said, "I'm ready"? Because you've obviously learned a ton about it. I mean, I'm sure you were in a lot of ways, but is it hard to believe that you can feel that way now that you've learned all this stuff along the way?
Yeah, it does. You know those things. You know how you're going to handle them, and then you get to put them in place, and it does. It just there's a lot of rewarding things about it. I believe we accomplished a lot through those 8 weeks. I think our players have been unbelievable, but yeah, 8 weeks went by pretty fast.
It's one of the things you learn that there's a reason that head coaches are usually head coach, not head coach / defensive coordinator.
That is probably the biggest lesson I learned. That is, in my opinion, a virtual impossibility. It's just too trying. There's just too much time commitment for both positions. I think, I know some guys have the head coach coordinator role. And I believe that a lot of times in those situations, there's a guy behind the scenes doing a lot of the work, and one guy standing there on game day calling it and appearing to be the guy that did all the work. I personally don't know how you could survive in that dual capacity. I did learn that that's tough.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, it's a little out of left field. But anyway, so football games have been lasting a lot longer lately. Average game times from around the country are almost 3.5 hours, about 6, 7, 8 minutes longer than last year. Do you notice that on the field at all, or are you just caught up in the moment with the game?
Yeah, I don't really notice that they're going an extended period of time. I think the style of football that's being played is obviously leading to that. Teams are running a lot more plays. A lot more of those plays are passing plays, which stop the clock a lot more often. But, the average number of plays is, getting higher and higher. You're getting up there in the 85s per game. So, the style of play, as fast as it is, and as much passing, I think, has created some of those time deals.
Clint, how do you want to be remembered as taking over these last 8 games for Charlie Weiss?
I guess the big thing to me is that it's it's always about the team. It's always about KU. It's about KU football. It's about our players and our program and the people that support us, and just be remembered as someone that that's what I buy into. That's what I believe. That's what I was taught from my high school coach through Glenn Mason through him. It's about the team, and that's the way it'll always be.
Somebody touched on this a little earlier, talking about Kansas kids on the roster and that kind of thing, but do you give those guys, whether it's Michael Reynolds or Ben Heaney or whoever else, do they get a little more role this week because of this rivalry and in terms of speaking to the team or saying something, like how Jake and Kerry and Stuckey and those guys did?
Yeah, we always keep it open. Anytime one of our players wants to stand up and say something, he doesn't have to be that. It could be any one of them. That doesn't have to be a Kansas guy. But no, I always want them to take ownership in their team and feel that they have that role. So.
Do we have any other questions?
All right. Without there being any other questions, I would like to address this final. What's going to be the final press conference as the interim deal here, and make some comments about it. The first thing I'd like to do is thank Chancellor Gray Little and Dr. Zinger for what has turned out to be just a truly amazing opportunity to represent Kansas and Kansas football in this capacity. It's meant a lot to me. It's been a very rewarding experience and one I'll never forget. Separate note, a special thanks to Dr. Zinger, who, never left me behind in this process one bit, was right behind me. Every decision I had to make, was here to support me throughout the whole thing. Anytime I needed anything, Dr. Zinger was right there to answer my call and help through the whole process along with several other people. I'd like to thank our assistant coaches, and our support staff, who through a very difficult time, and it is a difficult time for a lot of those people, continue to be professional and work hard and do what was right for Kansas and Kansas football and our players. And then I'd also like to mention our players. You guys don't always get to know them at a personal level, but in this program, we have some unbelievable character and some unbelievable young men who, through this whole deal, which is difficult for them as well, continue to fight and battle and do everything they could to represent this university, which they'll continue to do for one more week. But the players have been great. On the head coaching search deal, I've been asked several times my thoughts on it and what I think and how it affects me and those deals, and I've never really made a comment about it. I've never made it a secret or didn't let it be known that I would like to have this job. But like I mentioned earlier, the point of this whole thing, it isn't about me. It's not ever going to be about me. It's about this team, this university, and this football program. Dr. Zinger has a great plan and a process in place to find and hire the best person possible to lead this program forward. When the selection is made, I truly believe this. It's time for everybody to put their full support behind that decision. The last 8 weeks, we referred to it earlier, the last 8 weeks, we worked hard to get our players in this program to understand that it's never about one individual. It's about the team. It's about this program. It's about this university. And they always need to learn to put their personal agendas aside and do what's best for the team at all times. We all know that KU football is a program that should be successful and will be successful in a power conference. Very capable of doing that. And, the bottom line is only be done when the KU alumni, the fans, the support staff, administration, coaches, players, when we all start working together as a team, as with one goal to make Kansas a successful program. And that's, when this decision is made, that's what everyone needs to do. So, thank you.